I'm Reverend Dr. Bonnie McCurbin, and I serve as the Director of Museums and Pilgrimage and Conference Archivist for the Baltimore, Washington Conference of the United Methodist Church.
Could you explain the historical significance of Lovely United Methodist Church regarding the beginning of Korean missions?
So Lovely Lane United Methodist Church is in its 5th location as a congregation, but it was here in this location when Dr. Goucher was serving as the pastor of the congregation that he began the Korean Methodist mission work. He was on a train in Baltimore when he met some Korean emissaries who were coming in 1882, in the fall of 1882, to meet the political dignitaries here in America and learn about American culture and government as Korea was starting to open up to the West. And so Dr. Goucher chose to come, and after speaking with them, was so moved, he went to the Methodist Missions Board and said, I want to fund missionaries in Korea as soon as we're allowed to get in there to share God's word with them.
What role did Dr. John Goucher play in initiating the Methodist mission to Korea in the late 19th century?
In the late 19th century, Dr. Goucher was so moved by his interactions with Korean people that he decided to fund the missionary work in Korea. He initially offered $2,000, which would be around $75,000 in today's money, to fund the work of Appenzeller and also the work of a doctor to go and start hospitals and schools and religious education in Korea. Later, when he found out that they were having trouble making things happen, he offered an additional $3,000 then, which would be closer to $100,000 today, to purchase land and property and build buildings in Korea.
How were Dr. Goucher and Henry Appenzeller connected through this church to support the first missionaries to Korea?
Dr. Goucher was here as the pastor when he began those Korean Methodist missions, and he hand-selected Henry Appenzeller, who was currently finishing his theological studies at Drew University in New Jersey, when they decided that they needed a missionary and that Appenzeller would be the perfect choice for this work. While he did not have a lot of experience, he had a heart and a passion for the work that he was called to do. And so Dr. Goucher funded his role while he was the pastor here.
Do you know about the Appenzeller, what did he do in Korea?
So Appenzeller initially went to Japan and then took a ferry from Japan to Korea. At first, it was difficult to get into Korea. He ended up going back to Japan for a few months before coming to Korea again. And it was there that he began a boys' school to educate people in a Western style instead of a Confucian style. At first, people didn't trust what he was doing, but he later ended up building that trust and starting that work with other students. And they initially, he was there and taught them English because they believed that English was a way to a higher status in the culture at the time. And so Appenzeller began that. He also worked closely with a doctor who was there starting a hospital and with his Presbyterian counterparts. They started worshiping together, and then after a few months, they divided into their own denominations. But Appenzeller became the first one to preach, the first American missionary to preach in Korean. He was there for about 2.5 years before he gained enough language to be able to preach in Korean.
Are there any specific artifacts or memorials within Lovely Lane Church that commemoration in the mission work of the Dr. Goucher and Appenzeller?
We have displays for Dr. Goucher and Reverend Appenzeller in our museum, and we have agreements and treaties and all kinds of things that we've exchanged over the years between the Korean Methodist Church and the American Methodist Church. We have photographs, we have Dr. Goucher's passport that he used while he was traveling around the world in his missionary endeavors, and we really try to highlight some of that work that he did in education. We have the Cokesbury Bell, which was here in Baltimore and rang in the girls at the Women's College in Baltimore after it was rescued from fire in a previous location.
As you see many Koreans visiting from Korea and the Korean American visiting this church like a pilgrimage, what are your thoughts? Also, is there anything we might be overlooking or should pay more attention to regarding this history?
So I think one of the things that is really helpful as we have people come on pilgrimages is to look at the landscape around us, to look at how this was a pioneer place to be. When it was built, it was in the middle of cornfields and it was above the city line. But we see that quickly a church was built, a college for women was built. We see houses start to spring up within 10 years of the church being here. And so when we come on pilgrimages here, I think looking at the landscape and looking at the way in which things developed is a very important thing.
How can we effectively pass down this missionary history to the next generation of Korean Americans, for example, second generation or third generation?
We can pass down this history, I think, by emphasizing the friendship that we have between our cultures. The original missionary work was built on a cultural exchange where the American missionaries were not trying to make Koreans into Americans, but rather they said, we want to make the Koreans more Korean. We want to allow this to be something that is developed so that people have access to education and healthcare that was not previously available. And I think that emphasizing that is really important as we pass this history down because Dr. Goucher was a big proponent of equality in education for both males and females and making sure that all people had access to health care, which was not always done at that time. And so emphasizing these stories that are still very true in our lives today, where we try to ensure that all people of all race and all socioeconomic status have the same opportunities, that these are common themes that resonate both then and there and here and now.
How can we emphasize that this is a shared legacy between the American Methodist Church and the Korean Church rather than just a history for Koreans?
History is rooted in real people and real experiences. It tells a story of people. And I think that when we emphasize the people and the connections and the friendships that we hold, that we can do more than just tell boring facts, that we can tell a story of how we came to be and how we can use the past to help us interpret the future, that we can move on in the future as a unit and that we don't have to be separate people.
Beyond visiting the historic buildings, how can we continue to uphold the educational values established by Dr. Goucher in today's world?
So Dr. Goucher, and through Henry Appenzeller, we see that education was provided to children in Korea in the 1880s that either could not afford it, who were not being given an education because of their gender or their family's wealth, or their families could not take care of them. And so they provided education to these students then. And I think that those same values are very true today as we look around our country and our world, that there are some people who get lots of opportunities and some who don't have as many opportunities. And if we use their understanding that all people, no matter their race or their gender or their socioeconomic status, worthy of education and healthcare and religion, that we can share those values with students today. Like and subscribe this video to hear more at Mana!